Capital Partners. And today in Minute Mastery Series, we're going to go over key metrics that we look for in underwriting any deal that we see. So typically I'm asked from borrowers or brokers alike, what is it that you look for when you're looking at a deal? Do you care about my credit score? Do you care about more about me as a borrower, my viability, to pay you back from, let's say, my business or cash flows? Or is it more based on the asset? What is it that you actually look for when you're underwriting a deal? So I'm going to try and do this in the next 5 minutes and go through the key metrics or data points we look at any given deal. So the first key metric we look at is asset class or property type, right? So some lenders will specialize in working in a particular asset class. The main food groups, affectionately known, are office, retail, mixed use, light industrial, and multifamily. So what type of asset is it? And then we want to know the location, right? So have we lent in that area? Are we familiar with that local market? And are we comfortable with it? So some of the data points that we'll look at in a particular location is in trying to understand the demographics and what's happening in that particular market. We want to look at the following here. So number one, let's say job growth, right? Is this a desirable city? Are people moving into the city? Are we seeing that overall the population is growing? Are we seeing, a general market appreciation? And so one of the easiest ways of doing this is kind of looking from a residential and both a commercial perspective as well, but understanding what's happening, right? Are prices going up? Are we seeing an appreciation in rent, right? Both in the commercial and residential space. So trying to get an feel for the asset class and where it's located and see if we're comfortable. So from there, then I want to see the financials of the asset, right? So what's happening right now, and what is the strategy here? So are we doing, is this a value-added play where we're going to buy it, maybe a distressed property, do some value-add improvements, and then, exit, for, let's say, permanent financing and just improve the property to where it becomes bankable by a conventional loan? So the best way to do that is understand what's happening with the property. So we look at the financials, and particularly one of the easiest things or first things I ask for is how much is the building throwing off from an NOI perspective? What's the current NOI, right? And then I want to see, based on, I want to look at all their pro formas and see what the breakdown is of the project and how much they project that's going to improve the overall value of the asset and the overall cash flows of the asset. And then I also want to understand whether it's an acquisition or whether, let's say they already own it and they're looking for improvements on the property. I want to know how much equity do they have in the current asset, right? So, is it a property where maybe it's worth $5 million, but they have an existing $3 million worth of debt, right? Or is there a lot of equity? Is this something, let's say, where maybe it has 50% equity? For argument's sake, let's say it's a $10 million property. You get a first lien of maybe $6 million, right? So you've got a nice cushion there in the event that something was to go wrong, right? So that's particularly important as a lender. We always want to know because most loans that we do are non-recourse, right? So when I say non-recourse, I mean the only recourse or path of repayment is through the asset. So that's something particularly important to pay attention. Particularly if you're doing, let's say, a second lien position or you're doing some mezzanine financing, right? So as you go up the capital stack, you get a little riskier in your loan. You want to make sure, even more so, there's definitely equity, between you and, let's say, the first lender there. So then lastly, we want to look at what is the exit strategy, right? So what is the term or duration of this note, of this loan, and how are we going to get out? So is that going to come through the refinance? We're going to get taken out by, let's say, conventional financing or a bank, or is it going to come to the sale of a building? And then after I've gotten comfortable with the asset, I want to understand my exit, and then I want to look at the borrower, right? So this is important, even as a non-recourse lender, because you want to know who it is that you're dealing with, and you want to make sure that you're dealing with an experienced borrower. So the best way to do that is look at their track record or their resume, right? Or we refer to that as a deal sheet, right? So we'll definitely want to review the borrower's experience and see that they have a track record or a proven record, of working with this type of asset class in this particular market, right? And are they local to the market as well? That's really important. So we like to work specifically with borrowers or sponsors that are, in that market, they know it well and they have a proven track record. So this is very high level, but this is just basic back of the napkin key metrics we look for when working with any borrower.